Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chorizo Show. This is Joseph back at it again with yet another book review. For those of you that have been keeping up with the show, you might notice that I was going through Charles Bukowski's novels. I did a review on Ham on Rye, and I will continue to read some of Charles Bukowski's work and give y'all my kind of review on those. But something about hanging out in the scummy street life of LA made me want to come back home. So I thought we'd talk about Elmer Kelton's Sons of Texas today. Now, full disclosure, I am not, or I was not, very familiar with Elmer Kelton other than seeing his name pop up when I was walking down the western aisle of the bookstores, right? So I would see his name pop up and I'd see that he'd written several books in the western genre, but I'd never picked up any of his novels. I never thought, okay, this is something I'm going to want to do. I'm used to reading the ones that are most known. Obviously, Lonesome Dove has a big place in my heart. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, he's a big one also. S. Craig Zahler might be a little bit more obscure to some of you out there, but that's one of the authors that's sort of made a name for himself in the horror western genre, so that's kind of fun. I'm going to continue to delve into western novels as it is, but this was just one of the guys I didn't really know of. Now, looking a little bit at who Elmer Kelton was and some of the things that are being said about him, he's being compared to Louis L'Amour, and I think that's probably a really good thing. I can't speak on it because, believe it or not, having read several Western novels, I haven't read any Louis L'Amour. So I'm assuming that that's supposed to be a really good thing, and I really did enjoy Sons of Texas. So this has been pretty cool. But one of the main things that sort of popped out for me, at least at the beginning of this, was I found out that it was published in 1990, right? Now, that came as a little bit of a shock, and maybe it should not have. But the reason that it was a little bit of a surprise to me was when you read this novel, the way that the characters speak to each other and some of the things that are going on to it, it really lends itself to being a historical piece. And realizing that it was written in 1990 and having it feel like it takes place a long time before, this story takes place in 1816, by the way, that kind of separation is a little bit of a shock. I felt like it was probably a much older novel. So that was kind of fun. And it did remind me of when I read Lonesome Dove, which was written in the 80s. And that takes place in the Old West, and it very much reads like it. That was kind of a similar thing that I had with this. And I'm guessing that I'm probably going to find that that is a continuing theme as I go through these Western novels, that not all of them are going to be super old. Some of them are going to be fairly contemporary. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's just, these guys being interested in the history of Texas, history of Westerns, and really digging deep into that. So I thought that was really cool, and it was something I appreciated. So 1990, yeah, a bit of a big shock there. So what Sons of Texas is basically about is this family, the Lewises. Their father is sort of this nomad almost. He is constantly away from home, going on these adventures, being away from home for a long time. And it's written through the perspective of his oldest son, Michael, or one of the oldest son. I think he might be second. There's several of the of Mordecai Lewis's kids, so it's one of the older ones, Michael, and it's mostly told through his perspective. So that's definitely something to note here. So his father comes home, and it's this huge thing is made of it. They miss their father, all that, but he comes back with this tale of this what they think is this super exotic place called Texas. These guys live in Tennessee, so he comes home with this story of what the land looks like and what the adventure out there has been. And at this time, Texas is being controlled by the Spanish and Mexico, right? So basically, this is an unfolding of an adventure that they go on. Michael sneaks out on their next trip to get some horses in Texas. He kind of follows them behind. They leave. He puts his horse aside, puts his pack aside, and he's kind of trailing them the whole way. And he's hoping that he can be far enough away from home that whenever he does catch up to the camp where his father is and his asshole neighbor Cyrus Blackwood, whenever he's with them, they'll be so far out that he won't go, all right, well, I got to take your ass back home. He's hoping that they'll be far enough away that he'll let them stay and he can go on this trip, even though his father told him he couldn't go. Now, that's kind of the beginning of this. And then there's some interesting turns of events. This is obviously a tumultuous time in American history with what's going on there. There's some uncomfortable things with the natives and what was going on with the Spanish military and Mexico. There's some characters that are made to look really bad that aren't part of one of those other communities. They're surprised that some of the whites out there are pulling some of these horrific acts. That comes up too. So not that's to be expected. This is a crazy time in history, right? So everything is dangerous, and that's part of what Michael learns. And then later on, his younger brother Andrew teams up with him, and they go out and they go on an adventure towards the middle to later part of the book. And I found it all to be very fun. There is some danger, a lot of adventure. There's some backstabs. There's some love. There's a little bit of romance in there, which is pretty cool and a little bit unexpected. I guess it makes sense. You would think that if something's going to feel well rounded, it has to have a little bit all of life. You've got to have some backstabs, some betrayals, some danger, some deaths, some laughs, some love, So that's all got to be in there. And I found that even though this book isn't that long, Kelton has a way of writing that he can kind of have all that in and not make it feel bloated. It's pretty trimmed down. It's pretty fast paced, even though it does take place over a long period. It takes place when Michael's a little bit younger. I want to say he's like 17, something like that, 19 maybe. And then over the course of a few more years, he's, a grown man, and people have to grow fast in the Old West, right? And then Andrew is following up right behind him on this. There's a random, I don't think it's just supposed to be a cameo. I think this is going to take he's going to take a bigger role, but Stephen F. Austin's in here. He turns up a little bit later, and I thought that was really fucking cool. So I really do think that the way that it is being told and being written it's going to be this long epic, and this is just the first part of that. Now, when I was kind of looking at where these books are online, now I got these from a secondhand shop, but when I was looking online for them, what I saw was Sons of Texas and the next one, I think it's The Raiders, sold as a two-part. But there is a third book in this series called The Rebels, and I didn't see them sold as like a trilogy. So I'm wondering if maybe it was supposed to be a beginning of a story in book one, and then it finishes the second half in book two, and then maybe he liked the characters, liked the setting, and just wanted to continue with the Lewis saga and tack on a third book and sort of make it a trilogy, even though it might not have been planned. I'm unsure. I might look into that a little bit after recording and see if I can find a little bit more information of that. But overall, it is a trilogy, and I'll find out if there's more novels kind of connected to this series. But it was really fun. Elmer Kelton is a fun writer. He's gotten a lot of praise, and I understand why. I don't think this is going to be a masterpiece per se. I don't think this is going to go down as one of those books like Lonesome Dove that I can't stop talking about. But I really enjoyed myself. It was a quick page turner. I tend to read at night when I'm going to bed, and this is one of those books that I just kept going through because I was like, man, I just want to see what happens next. And that's a lot of praise. Whether or not this story is going to work for a lot of people is going to be based on if you just like the Western setting. That's really all it's going to come down to. If you don't want to read about violence with six shooters and rifles and hunting and that kind of stuff, if that isn't going to work for you, then skip stuff like this. There's no one going to blame you. But I don't think that this is some well written enough to turn people onto it. So people that aren't already into this, I don't see them changing their mind on westerns based on this. This wouldn't be the first thing that I would show them, right? Like I could show people that aren't into westerns Lonesome Dove and them see the epic grand scale American story, all of the things that are associated with that, and I can see them going, "Wow, that's a really great story in a genre I would normally not read." This just falls short of that. It's fun, and I'm going to keep going with it, and I'm interested in continuing this, but it didn't hit that hard. This is not a masterpiece. It's just a really good book, right? So I did collect. This is called Lone Star Rising, and this is a Texas Rangers trilogy by Elmer Kelton. And it's a collection of the Buckskin Line, Badger Boy, and The Way of the Coyote. And I'm gonna probably knock this out soon after this, or whenever I feel like I need to come back home to Texas, like I said. So yeah, Elmer Kelton, badass dude. I'm gonna keep going. I want to see what else is out there. I'm probably gonna read some Louis L'Amour also. That might be a little bit older, and I fully plan to at some point do a video on Riders of the Purple Sage by Zane Grey, because that was a book that I read a few months ago and I never made a video on it, but I really enjoyed that, and I think that one's a bit older. So yeah, man, I'm kind of reinvigorated in the whole Western thing. I needed a break from Mr. Bukowski and his crazy ways. So this has been a nice breath of fresh air. As much as I love Bukowski, I kind of needed to feel like I was um, in more familiar territory, right? So I guess on that note, you guys, this is going to not be that long of a video. I think our next move here is I'm probably going to bring another Bukowski novel, and then I did a video on Dolores Claiborne, a solo video. This is right at the beginning of the Trudy Subrose channel, and it was just me kind of talking about what I thought about the movie and what I thought about the book. But I've got Jeremy's gonna finish up Dolores Claiborne, and then I have another one of we're gonna bring in a new Trudy Sabro to come out and talk with us, and we're gonna discuss Dolores Claiborne, and that's kind of gonna be the next group video. And then whenever Art gets back, which hopefully will be soon, buddy, if you find a little bit of time, we're going to bring you one of the books in the Lonesome Dove series. There's no movie about it, as far as I know, or miniseries. So it's just going to be me, Jeremy, and Art reading one of those novels in that series. And we'll bring more of that to you. I think I'm going to get out of here, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you are just looking for a fun-ass novel to read, can't go wrong with this one, guys. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much.